Welcome back to the SteadyTrade Podcast, everyone. I am Tim Bohen, back with Matt McCall. Listen, as we're recording, an interesting time in the Bitcoin market and the crypto market overall. And, I like to tell stories. That's why I like to podcast. But before I bring Matt on, it's interesting. I still follow a lot of these crypto accounts on X, from back in the few years ago. And a lot of them, they kind of went they always go dormant when crypto goes nowhere. But then the last few months, it cracks me up with these guys, man. Just peak, the emotional troughs these guys go through. You go back to a few months ago and just irrational exuberance, just screaming from the mountaintops. And then you fast forward to the last couple days and it's all over. I got scammed again. And it's just it's just this emotional roller coaster with them. And I'm just as a guy that day trades penny stocks, I almost want to reach out to them and be like, guys, part of trading is having a plan, what you're going to do. And the reason you constantly go through this emotional roller coaster of I'm a millionaire or I'm going back to McDonald's is because you just buy these things and hodl them with no plan, no stop loss, and no profit goal. Listen, if Bitcoin goes to 1 million as we record this podcast, 99% of these guys wouldn't sell because they'd be like, it's going to 10 million next. And it's it's just wild to see the emotional roller coaster that they go to. So, but that being said, Bitcoin pulling back to the low 50,000s right now, which again, if you look at a longer term, still pretty incredible, but there's a lot of panic out there. And I know a lot of you that are probably asking why is this happening? So as always, my man, Matt brought a bunch of data. So welcome back, Matt. How's it going, my man?
Good. Thanks, Tim. That's a great little intro because you're right. I mean, it's that kind of get rich quick mentality, right? That a lot of these people have where, they may have made a lot of money very quickly in big, booms when Bitcoin and especially altcoins are moving. And they got busted when it went down, and they've seen friends get busted. But I'll tell you, I had on my podcast maybe about a year ago, Scott Melker, the Wolf of All Streets is his X handle. And he had brought up a point when Bitcoin's maybe down around 40,000 in time. It pulled way back, before it hit the new highs in the 70s. And a lot of people who bought in the high 60s were down. And he made a good point. He said, if you would have just put whatever it is amount, say $100 a week, every week, dollar cost average in Bitcoin, you're actually up. And you're up. You're actually up, even though Bitcoin's down. At that point, let's say it was 40% down from the high, something like that, 30, 40%. You still would have been up. So the people who are doing exactly what you said, Tim, trying to ride every up and down, you're chasing your tail. I mean, in theory, it sounds fantastic, right? I'm going to ride it up. I'm going to sell it when it comes down. It's one of the hardest things to do. Swing trading is not easy. We do it because you and I have done it for 20 years. It takes and you have bad times. It's very tough. So I'm glad you brought that up.
And sorry to interrupt. I'll let you get back to that. But it's I just, and I know I'm to longtime listeners, you've heard me say have a plan 1 billion times. But that's one of the reasons I teach that. I do that. I never enter a position without some sort of plan. What it's going to do if it goes my favor. What I'm going to do if it doesn't. But there's just the problem with them is just, again, they're so emotionally attached because they pile in and they pile out and they pile in and they pile out. And it's just if you just approach Bitcoin as a professional, it's now you're still going to be emotional. You have money at risk, but if you just don't have this constant chasing your tail, it can bring your anxiety level massively lower.
I mean, I'll tell you, I have about a fifth of my liquid net worth in crypto, majority of it Bitcoin, almost all of it Bitcoin.
Wow, nice.
And so, I've seen the swings over the years, up and down, and it's painful when it gets really hit hard. As many people know, I'm in Spain for the month, and we're taping this later, but it's 7:10 p.m., so it's fine. But I'm drinking a glass of red wine because I'm taking the edge off right now of Bitcoin pulling back. But I'm smiling because I have Molchingo cheese and salami sitting next to me for in between breaks. But let's get back. You talked about that kind of the fear and greed that people have, right? The ups and downs, which is truly emotions.
Sure.
So the crypto fear and greed index at the lowest level the last couple of days hit 26, the lowest level since 2023. At that time, Tim, Bitcoin was at 17,000. we're still in the low to mid 50s, so we're way above where they were. But keep in mind, and I follow this index, but I am as guilty as the average investor out there. I've been doing this 25 years. I'm still as guilty as anybody. I write about it. You and I preach about it. We educate people on it. But when it peaked in March, the fear and greed, it goes from 0 being fear to 100 being mass greed. It hit 90 in March. You know what happened in March? Bitcoin at the highest level ever and pulled back. Yeah. I shouldn't take some off the table, but I've actually never sold my Bitcoin. I've had it forever, so maybe I wouldn't have. But it just shows.
We share that. Now, I don't have, like I said, I don't have a fifth of my net worth into Bitcoin, but I do have a pretty decent position. And I have no plans to sell anytime soon either. But again, I've scaled in over years, literally, probably scaled in over a decade. I got to go back and look, probably a decade. So again, I've got a decent position where it's like I don't freak out when it pulls back from 60 to 55. Please.
And Ian, what's crazy, and anybody out there watching, if you want to get a look at this fear and greed index, the company that puts it on, the website's alternative.me is a website. And what's crazy is it's at 28 now, it hit 26 and bounced back low. So it's still near lows. But just last week it was at 53. Last month it was at 72, which is greed. So you can see this shifted in 30 days. I mean, this isn't like something that it's been getting, the fear's been coming in. This was a quick shift in fear. And you mentioned, why is this happening? Well, there's a lot of reasons why it's happening, but it really comes down to three really entities that are selling. It's the U.S. government, Tim, it's the German government, and it's the Mt. Gox exchange, which was shut down about a decade ago. They're all liquidating Bitcoin right now. So, for example, the U.S. government, as of the first week of July, they still had $12 billion.
Yeah, I didn't, until you sent me this, I didn't realize they still had that.
12 billion. And a lot of that, for folks out there listening, like, where the hell did that come from? Obviously, the U.S. government's not buying Bitcoin on Coinbase, on the open exchange. It's them seizing assets. And a lot of it still goes back, and I'm pretty sure, don't hold me this, goes back to Silk Road, which was the dark web, where they put the guy in jail forever. It goes back to that. But they've been seizing it for years, and now they're selling it, which I will give the government. What we do with the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, we buy at the highs and sell it and open it up at the lows. I mean, I actually have to give them some props here. They're selling closer to the high than they are to the lows. But that coming on board with Germany, they're unloading some too. They seized some as well recently. And then Mt. Gox, they have about $8 billion in Bitcoin. So you add that together, it's over $20 billion in Bitcoin out there right now. So in the near term, I think this pullback could continue. But however, Tim, once we get rid of that flood of supply, we go back to simple supply and demand. And to me, that's the number one driver of Bitcoin over the long term.
Yeah, and that's where, again, that's why we chose this topic for today, is like, in my opinion, this is an opportunity. So if you've watched Bitcoin, or maybe you never, I mean, obviously you're probably living under a rock, but if you've never heard of it or whatever, if you like to me, this sell-off is an opportunity at the end of the day, because you have these big people, flooding the market. And like, I know we have a diverse group here, and a lot of people might be brand new to trading. So just understand that, at the end of the day, whether it be the stock market or a crypto market, at the end of the day, they're markets, okay? And I always like to use that analogy, especially for like people that are brand new to this, is like, I always think of like your high school economics course, like in 10th grade, okay? Like, what's the first thing you learn? Supply and demand, okay? Like what happens when there's a lot of supply and little demand, or a lot of demand and little supply? Well, obviously those two work together, and right now we've got supply coming on the market so that the demand isn't outweighing that. So the more of that selling pressure that comes in doesn't bash the technology, doesn't, nothing against Bitcoin. Yep. It's just that simply you can see it reflected in the chart. You simply have a lot of supply coming on the market, which, again, like, I always like to use concert tickets, okay? If it's some washed up 80s metal band that I listen to, you can get a ticket, my favorite music, you can get a ticket for face value. You want to go to a Taylor Swift concert, good luck. You're going to pay 10 times face value. And it's just that simple idea, because everybody wants to go see Taylor Swift. Nobody wants to see the washed up 80s metal band on their third lead singer because they've all OD'd, okay? Like, that's the difference, okay? So
Yeah, no, that's a great analogy. I'll have to use that one in the future. I'm not a big 80s metal band guy. I mean, don't be wrong. I had a bunch of vinyls of Quiet Ride and all of them back in the day. I don't call it metal. It's probably soft metal for you. But
Yeah.
I had some vinyls back in the day. But keep in mind, you talk about opportunity. Historically, August and September are not the greatest months for crypto. I will put that out there. That being said, there's a bit of a wild card that we're playing with this year and this 4-year cycle. And that's that the Fed is basically priced in, well, let's just say the market's priced in, the Fed's kind of talked about it, the first rate cut in September. And you and I have talked about this in the past episodes, if you want to go back and listen about the election coming up and everything, that's probably going to happen. So it's likely we're going to see 25 basis point cut on interest rates in September. That will be good for crypto, number one, because a lot of times people look at crypto, there's half and half. There's people you talked about early, Tim, that look at crypto as pure gambling.
Yes.
People like me look at it as a store of value. Similar to people look at gold, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So as interest rates go down, it makes store of value assets such as Bitcoin more attractive. So this will actually be good for Bitcoin when that happens. And then we also have, which could happen honestly any day, I think it happens by the end of the month, is the full approval of an Ethereum ETF, which is number 2 crypto, ETH, they call it ETH. I think this will really be something that's a game changer. It's being overlooked. It was kind of big at first, and Grayscale was kind of a pioneer.
It's funny you mention that because I only day traded Ethereum back when it was hot, but it is kind of interesting. You just don't there for a while. It was like everyone was talking about it, and you just don't really hear about it anymore. So even though there's a lot of guys that say it's better technology than Bitcoin. So.
I have this. I'm not going to claim to be a complete expert on cryptocurrencies, blockchain, that type of stuff. I think I'm probably in the top 1% as you are, just because we have done some work on it.
Sure.
But I have friends and colleagues that are literally the top 0.001%. And I was just speaking with somebody right now, going back and forth on WhatsApp. He's in Nicaragua, and just getting some information for the show. To be honest with you, and the thing about Ethereum that's very different than Bitcoin is. Bitcoin's really a store of value. It's not really a currency. It's more of a store of value. It's digital gold. I think most people will believe that. I think you agree with me. Ethereum, though, is more of a software where there's different blockchain technologies built on the Ethereum network. And Solana's are competitors, other smaller ones that are competitors. But however, Ethereum is still what everything's being built on for the most part. If you look at the big companies like JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, they're building things on Ethereum. And then, of course, they're poo-pooing cryptos half the time and loving the other half the time. So Ethereum is something where it gives you diversity. Even though it's number 2, it gives you diversity. I think when we do see that, Grayscale thinks you'll see demand increase for Ethereum by 25%. I think that's going to be very, very true. And it could be a game changer. And then the 5th largest coin right now is Solana.
If you don't mind, and sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. So go, please.
Would you speak to the fact of the ETFs, because a lot of people might not understand what's going on there, that these are a derivative based on these things, like exchange traded funds. So maybe just kind of break that down for maybe people that haven't even heard of the fact
that's a great question.
Publicly traded ETFs that track these things.
So until earlier this year, there was no ETF out there that tracked the spot price of Bitcoin. So it'd be very similar to people out there who own GLD or IAU. So those are both gold spot ETFs. And what that means is the ETF actually owns the gold to back up all the shares of that ETF. I remember GLD when it came out. I was on Fox Business all the time, and people would write in and comment and like, hey, they actually don't own the gold. They do. There's a vault in London where they actually own the gold that backs that up. Same thing with the Bitcoin spot ETFs. They're under the microscope more than any ETF that's ever been approved, ever. One of the fastest growing ETFs ever, too. They actually own the Bitcoin. So that you have the actual Bitcoin owned behind it. There's Ethereum funds out there right now, Tim, that will track the price, but they're not actually owning Ethereum itself, the ETH. If it gets approved, the spot will actually own it. So it'd be almost the exact same thing as you buying it on Coinbase or Kraken, wherever you would want to buy it. But now you can simply do it by buying an ETF through Schwab or
any brokerage.
Schwab.
So
any brokerage with zero fees, zero fees to buy in your retirement account.
That's why I wanted you to speak to it, because a lot of people, Hey, listen, it's funny. Back in the early days, I mean, I got shafted at 3 different crypto brokers, okay? One was Bitfloor, like you can Google it. Like I got shut down 3 different times. Now, fortunately, never had a massive position size. But if I go back and if I would have bought Bitcoin instead of buying on these sketch exchanges, I'd probably have like $1 million position today. Like back then it was like $5,000 once. It was like a couple grand again. It wasn't, but I'm talking like 12 years ago. So I know a lot of people get wary of some of these exchanges. So the nice thing about the ETFs is you don't have to, go to this exchange, wire them money, worry about that. You can just fire up your Schwab or your E-Trade account or your Thinkorswim account or wherever you trade, and then basically buy that ETF. And I mean, listen, nothing's guaranteed, but at least you don't have to worry about something happening to me. 3 different exchanges shutting down. And the funny one was Bitfloor. Sorry to, again, I know
I got to cut you off there.
Okay, go on.
Okay, it's called Bitfloor. Not Bit Ceiling, not Bit Bull, but Bitfloor. So were you not a bit concerned when it's called Bitfloor?
So real quick, the story. So again, I only had like a couple grand there. Nothing amazing. But like 6 months later, I get this email that says, oh, we're going to refund everybody. And I'm like, oh, awesome. And then guess what? Like I got a check for like $62. Like, because that was all they had left, and they sent what they had left to everybody. I ripped it up and threw it away. I'm like, I don't want your $60. Anyway, sorry.
No, but you're right. I fell victim to one as well, and thank God, like I have my money in Coinbase, and I met a guy through one of my past businesses, and he came in and said, my buddy has this thing, and boy, the app looked fantastic. I researched a guy. I only put $5,000 in. Within months, it was gone. It belly up. Thank God. Like, if I moved everything over there, again, you're looking at 7 figures out the window. It's insane. And, I had a buddy, and this is a horrible story. Obviously, nobody knows his name, but he moved to Nicaragua almost 20 years ago. He's my age. Started getting in cryptos in the very beginning, Tim. Very, very beginning. Started with a few $1,000s, and he was trading. He created algorithms, grew it to $4.4 million. This is a guy it's his job. It's all he does. Always kept it offline. Never put it in Coinbase or anything. He one day wanted to do one trade on FTX. Hadn't traded in weeks. Put it in FTX. It happened to be the 3 hours that FTX went belly up. Oh, God. Gone. Gone. I mean, just imagine. I mean, I would have jumped off the bridge. This guy, thank God, is the most positive guy in the world I've ever met. But I didn't believe it. Just shows like, I'm not trying to scare people away from Bitcoin right now.
He timed that perfectly.
I mean, my God.
Oh, man.
So, but you're right. The thing now with ETFs, and people are listening who are skeptical need to know that the SEC, the last thing they wanted to do was approve a Bitcoin ETF.
Oh, they fought it for years.
So they've looked at the paperwork upside down, backwards. There's Coinbase is custody of most of this stuff. Like, I'm safe on Coinbase. I should say I feel safe on Coinbase. Right. I've always told clients in the past when I manage money, if that's where you want to go. That being said, Schwab can go belly up tomorrow. I don't know. I mean, you have no idea, right, what can happen. But I feel pretty damn safe. And the last thing I want to mention
Stearns and
on
ETFs went under,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Jim Cramer the day before said it was a buy, didn't he? I think he was out there saying buy the stock at that point. I would say the one thing, too, if you do believe in Bitcoin and you believe that it could see several $100,000 per token, you're looking at 5-6x, right? You can buy this in a retirement account now, which is great, and you're not paying taxes on that. So that's the one thing it opens up to people out there. And this, again, we're never giving personal advice at all. But what I'm saying is, if you're worried about gains, that's a great way to play it in your retirement account.
So before I took us off into the weeds, you brought up Solana. So let's double back to that.
Oh, just to talk about Solana, they're the 5th largest coin out there. They're kind of a competitor to Ethereum. SOL is the symbol they use for it. It's actually held up really well during a pullback. One of the big coins has held up much better. And several firms have actually filed for an ETF for spot Solana, which will probably be the 3rd one. Van Eck has, Grayscale has as well. I'm not saying this happens anytime soon, but there's likely going to be a trickle-down effect. And this brings us to kind of our next little topic here, like potentially positive catalyst for Bitcoin. And one could be the election. Right now, again, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, the polls showed Trump winning.
Yep.
And shit, Biden may not be the candidate by the end of the week, and I would not be surprised at all. He may not be the candidate.
He might not be the candidate by the end of this podcast. Who knows?
Yes, exactly. By the time this airs, he may not be the candidate. But if they go with Kamala Harris, I think the numbers still go in Trump's favor. Either way. So I think Trump wins. I'm not saying that's who I'm voting for. I'm saying that's where I play the numbers. I'm an odds guy. I'm a gambler.
Well, you look at the gambling. That's what the gambling markets, and
the gambling markets are saying it, right?
Yeah.
So if he doesn't, and he's been a proponent of it, and you know what he's going to likely do? Something that I would do, probably my first business, is get rid of Gary Gensler, who's the chairman of the SEC. I mean, this guy's the biggest schlub I've ever met. He's a clown. And I can say that now because I'm not SEC registered. I wouldn't say it when I'm a firm because I'm scared of those bastards. But this guy is an absolute joke, a bomb jokes. So they'll get rid of him. They'll probably put somebody in that's actually crypto positive, right?
Kind of going back to what we said, like he was probably I mean, I don't know. I'm not in the meetings, but he was probably one of the principal reasons that it took so long to get these ETFs because he was, very against it.
But what's crazy, if you look at his background, not to get too deep in this, but you look at his background over the last 8 to 10 years, he was never anti-crypto. He wasn't. I mean, he really changed his tune completely as soon as he got that job. So, again, this is speculation. But I do think he'll be gone, which I think will be really good for all potential ETF approvals, good for cryptos in general, going along with the election there as well. It's funny. I was trying to do research on this over the weekend, and you find these kind of far right websites where it's like Trump may have mentioned in passing that he's going to create a strategic reserve for crypto, basically an asset reserve of crypto. Bitcoin, should say, not Bitcoin. I don't know if that happens. I think that's kind of far out there. However, Tim, one of the members of the German political party, they actually criticized recently that they were hastily selling Bitcoin, urging to develop a comprehensive Bitcoin strategy.
Interesting.
Which I thought was pretty amazing.
As the world continues to grow and change, I mean, I'm sure, you think of like 150 years ago when people were talking about, like, I doubt they brought it up back then, but like the strategic oil reserve. People were probably, why? What would be the point of that? Back in the early days of oil in late 1800s, et cetera. And then you fast forward to now, and I mean, to me, I kind of agree. I mean, if this is going to be as big as I think it is, then the government should probably have some sort of reserve in it. So
I agree. And the woman who said this,
just like
no, exactly.
For hundreds,
it's no different than gold.
Geez, tens of thousands of years, governments have held gold reserves.
And, if you look at Grayscale put out a great paper years ago, you've probably seen it. It kind of compares gold to Bitcoin on fungibility, everything, like all different things, that all kind of the factors that make gold attractive. And they gave gold's argument and then Bitcoin's argument. Bitcoin either matched or outdid Bitcoin in every single argument. The reason that it's just so, I guess, frowned upon by the people who own gold is, again, most people who own gold have gray hair. I'm getting a couple years, so I'm not going to yell. And it's in my beard, so I'm not saying I'm not. I have gray hair.
So I'm not Irish Bitcoin since it was like 3 cents.
So anyway, but I will say that the older crowd is just anti-Bitcoin because they don't understand it. And I completely get it. If I was in my 80s, I'd probably, what the hell is this crazy stuff? I'm not doing it. I was sticking with my gold. My gold's been fine. But this is the new era of gold. So I think we will see at some point in our lifetime a strategic reserve of Bitcoin. It's going to happen. It's and all these things are long-term bullish catalysts for everything we're talking about. Just to bring it kind of back to Bitcoin. I mean, when I managed money, I couldn't tell people to buy Bitcoin, but if they called me, I obviously had my due diligence to go through what their risk profile was and say what they should do. At the time, we couldn't do it for them. But I would always say, this is how much money I have in. I'm aggressive, but this is how much I have. You make your decision based off that. So I put my money where my mouth is when it comes to Bitcoin.
Yeah, and that's kind of back to my opening story. It's like all of these guys that just like pile in and pile out. They could massively reduce their stress levels if they just thought about it longer term. But you can't. You want to buy the Lamborghini next week to impress the girlfriend, and that's what you got to do is pile in, I guess.
And I think before we wrap, I want to talk about these Bitcoin miners out there, but I think we should do a whole show on it because I think we really want to dive into kind of the economics of them, because especially after that happened in April. So I think we should maybe do a separate show on that maybe in a couple of weeks. But real quick, I just think before we go, let people know, like a lot of people out there, yes, I like penny stocks. I like exactly what Tim does. I love it. I trade my own money. But when it comes to trading some of these coins, and I'm going to use bad language here, but that's what they're called. They're called shit coins.
Yep.
And, they're memes, they're nuts, they're crazy. There's a guy who, if you know UFC, he's, I think, from Uzbekistan or somewhere over there, Kazmat Chimaev or something like that. He was out pushing a coin recently called Smash. Went to zero. It was a scam. They had the Geo Boden, which is BODEN, which is a meme coin for Biden, really? I mean, that thing fell 43% after the debates. Meanwhile, the Kamala coin, KMA, up 326%. I mean, it's just like, it's bananas. Like, just so people know, that's pure gambling. Like, it's worse than a coin toss, like, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, and that's one thing, like, again, I've traded Bitcoin, invested in Bitcoin would be the more proper term, because I'm basically, as we've discussed, I've traded Ethereum. I don't currently have any right now. I've just kind of day traded it when it was hot. But I just never saw the allure of the alts and the shit coins. It's just like, especially like, I trade penny stocks every day. I'm like, at least I could like trade this on a real exchange. At least they have news. Now we know never to believe penny stocks. We just ride the hype. We had a great one today. They issued a electric vehicle with AI press release, and it was a good runner, but we knew they were never going to release this car, etc. So and a lot of people, when I tell them that, they're shocked because they think, oh, penny stocks, you love the alts. And I'm like, no, penny stocks, it's like, I don't need these altcoins that go to zero in like a minute or something. And for me, there's just so many of them. Like these, like I hadn't even heard of this Smash coin until you told me about it. It's like, it's just this absolute Wild West. So I've never seen, like, have you ever traded any of them? I don't,
No, I don't. And honestly, to trade most of those, it's not simple as going on a Coinbase, because they're not going to have those coins on there, right? So you're coming on some weird exchange, converting your Bitcoin or Ethereum to something else, moving things around. If it's going to take that much work, it better be a pretty damn good high probability trade. And these are not high probability trade. I'll tell you what, the one thing that I did a customer several years ago in Europe, remember when that volcano in Iceland blew up? And I was stuck in Europe for weeks.
It's like, it's an Iceland word, so it's like 75 letters long. But.
Exactly. And one vowel. And so I remember I was stuck in Sweden, ended up in Copenhagen, and I was so bored going to the pub every day, just I had nothing to do. And a guy's doing the cards, right, where he does the cards, and you try to pick it. The three card Monte, this is called. I watched this guy for an hour. I'm like, I have this shit down. I got it. This guy took me for every euro I had in my pocket. That's investing in crap coins. That's what that is. That's exactly. Your odds are basically 1%, if that. They may let you win once, but they're going to take all your money. So please stay away from that stuff, because if you do know something, you're probably doing something illegal. So please stay away from it.
So in summary, guys, as always, we don't give personalized advice, but if you're interested, like if you feel like you've missed the Bitcoin run, all this stuff we've talked about, I think that all of this supply coming on the market is going to create a buying opportunity. Now, as always, again, if you choose that it fits for you, just scale it. And then that's something I've been saying, some of you have been on, whether it be the podcast or my webinars or like going back 10 years ago, my message has been extremely consistent about Bitcoin. I've said, hey, start out with just a small, consistent number. Look for the big pullbacks like we're seeing right now. Don't buy tops, but a month ago, because what I love about Bitcoin is you consistently get these big pullbacks. So if you can avoid the FOMO, the fear of missing out, it's going to 100,000, and just wait for those big pullback waves, it's great opportunities. And then also, I'm glad you brought up that Ethereum ETF, because that had kind of fell off my radar. So definitely, again, keep an eye on that as well.
Again, we're not giving advice here, but I'm just, people want to know what I invest in too. They want to know what we have in our own money. I'm telling you, I've about give or take a fifth of my money in Bitcoin, and I've had it for a long time. And obviously my net worth goes up and down dramatically from week to week based off it. But I feel safe and secure with it, honestly. And then I'm human. I feel it when it goes down. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to be Pollyanna here, but I do feel that 100,000 is very attainable in the next 12 months. And at that point, I may reevaluate it. But I think that's very attainable after this supply is gone. So that's just my view long-term on Bitcoin.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into the latest edition of the SteadyTrade Podcast. I always like to remind you guys, as always, drop those comments. You know, we're always looking to evolve and change this podcast. By the way, we've been getting a lot of amazing comments. People like the relaunch. I think we relaunched about a month ago, a little over a month ago, and we've been getting a lot of great comments, but criticism too. Like, listen, Matt and I love doing this podcasting stuff. We've both done it for years. Now we're now we're together doing it. So give us those comments and criticism, and we'll see you on the next episode of the SteadyTrade Podcast.